Hello and welcome. Raise your hand if you've ever been attacked by a film like I've had. Perfect. Because that's exactly what happened with Inside Out 2.
Inside Out 2 finally premiered in theaters, and this is a sequel that I've definitely been looking forward to.
It is the direct sequel to Inside Out, which we did discuss years ago, and it is one of the best Pixar movies in my opinion. It's not my ultimate favorite Pixar movie, that one goes to WALL-E, but I still adore the series. I love that we got a sequel, and I was so excited to be able to see it. And I can say with full certainty, it was so much better than I expected it to be. I feel like there's a running joke with Pixar films where Pixar films are based on what if blank had emotions, and when we come to Inside Out, it's what if emotions had emotions. But I love it so much because it is something that everyone can and will relate to.
Yay.
Before we discuss the film, let's discuss the cast. Both Amy Poehler and Phyllis Smith do return respectively as Joy and Sadness.
And Lewis Black also reprises his role as Anger.
But then we have some new characters and some new returning characters.
And what I mean by that is, instead, Fear and Disgust, who were originally voiced by Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling, respectively, are now voiced by Lisa Lapira and Tony Hale. And listen, Tony Hale played Forky, the greatest Pixar character ever created, so I'm completely okay with him replacing Bill Hader, but I still love Bill Hader too. Our new characters include Anxiety, who is voiced by Maya Hawke, who I also personally adore, Io Debris, who is Envy, Paul Walter Hauser is Embarrassment, and
Joy is so old school.
I'm never going to be able to pronounce that, plays Anu. And this was directed by Kelsey Mann and written by Meg LaFell and Dave Holstein.
I'm sure I'm not the only person to say this, that the entire premise of this film is insanely relatable because it deals with growing up and dealing with your emotions, and that is something that I'm very familiar with as well as everyone else is familiar with. It's always great to see such a refreshing take on the matter, and this is something I can say as a general take, not just with this film, but with a lot of the films that have been coming out from Pixar recently, as well as just general media. This wonderful take on mental health and how important the idea of mental health is and mental health awareness. And I'm here for this because I also suffer from mental health like many other people in this world. Personally, I've been diagnosed with anxiety. I've dealt with depression also in my life throughout the years. So anxiety and depression kind of go hand in hand. Lots of people have them. I am one of those. And it's interesting that in terms of Riley's character, she only really has anxiety, which is good, especially for Disney. I know that they want to be able to still hold a light of positivity in their characters, so I really appreciate that they do showcase anxiety at least, because that's something that mostly everyone deals with, whether it be small or larger increments of it. I can say that when I do have my own anxiety attacks, I feel calm. I don't feel anxious when they happen, but my entire body starts to shake from head to toe, and I'm not able to stop until I focus and try to breathe. And a lot of times I use either Reiki or ASMR, and that puts me in a better headspace to calm down. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen enough where I'm used to it.
I wanted to share my experiences because I know that everyone reacts to their emotions differently. And one of the main characters of this film clearly is Anxiety, and part of her arc is how she ends up taking over the mind, which happens in reality. There's a scene specifically towards the end of the film where Riley becomes insanely stressed out, and it turns into her having an anxiety attack. They never label it as such within the film, but what they show is so powerful and real, and I was literally sitting there feeling so attacked in the best way because I've dealt with those same emotions so many times within my life. I feel like this film is so important to be seen, not only for everyone to have a better conversation on mental health, but I also feel like this would be such an important tool for therapists to use, especially because they show Riley using some classic techniques to calm down from her anxiety attack. So now that message is highlighted, let's jump into the plot.
Riley is now a teenager and she is transitioning from middle school into high school, and most of the story takes place in one location. She gets invited to a prestigious hockey camp that's a 3-day camp, and a lot of the focus is on her trying to be impressive to her new teammates and her new coach because she wants to make sure she does well enough to be able to get on the team in high school.
And this is also where my pessimistic concern comes through while watching the film. All the new characters treat her well and accept her so easily, and I was genuinely surprised that none of the high school girls tried to backstab her or set her up for failure or just talk bad about her. It's a trope that happens in so many films and real life, especially once you reach teenhood, so I was pleasantly surprised it didn't follow that direction, but it also made me question how realistic that truly is, that all the new girls instantly accepted her and no one was really catty in their behavior.
Just like last time, there are no real villains of the film. I know in the last film, Joy kept on repressing sadness and trying to make sure that Riley's happy all the time and there's no room for sadness at all. And of course, as we learn, there are important places to be sad. Sadness is a very important emotion. And the one thing I thought was really interesting is even in this film, because the emotions are growing up alongside Riley, and so the emotions also have their moments where they're breaking down little by little and they feel sadness. There is a moment that Joy feels sadness and sheds a couple tears, and I thought that that was very unique, a very awesome representation to show that emotions can also be very diverse and complex and mix well with each other.
Delusional? Of course I'm delusional! Do you know how hard it is to stay positive all the time when all you folks do is complain, complain, complain?
That's another thing the film did such an amazing job with, is that a lot of these emotions get more time to shine. And before, last time, it was very focused on only joy and sadness, and anger, fear, and disgust were more in the background. This time, everyone works together as a group, and they have their own adventure all together, and they all work within each other. And I love that because it shows a lot of growth. It shows a lot of the progression that we went from the first film, and it's a really nice linear journey where anything they learned is continued in this one. It's very funny. This film is honestly really, really funny, and it's very smart with its humor. There were many times that I ended up laughing in the theater and loved what the scenes were. It's so smart.
A lot of the humor also came from small callbacks from the first film, but also from a couple of one-off characters.
One that was represented to be a knockoff of Dora the Explorer and Blue's Clues, I would compare it to. And it had a pouch called Pouchy, which was again very Dora the Explorer. And that scene alone was, anytime Pouchy was on the screen, I was cracking up, especially because Pouchy interacted with Anger, and that was such a great interaction between those two characters. I would love to see a short film series on Disney Plus, there you go, here's your idea, of Pouchy and Anger together. Please. It probably won't happen, but that would be brilliant because I feel like it could do so much with so little. You don't need that much, just them interacting together, maybe 3-4 minute segments. Brilliance. I would love to watch that. There's also another minor character that's Lance, who's a video game character.
It's confirmed from IMDb trivia that Lance Slashblade is a direct parody of Cloud Strife in the Final Fantasy franchise. So, Inside Out and Kingdom Hearts when?
I love seeing the video game character within this world because it's in the video game style, of course, so a lot more pixelated, very much more stiff movements because of the limited linearity of video games, and it was great. So I also love that the characters that didn't get as much time, so Anger and Disgust in the last film, got moments where they got to shine because Disgust and Lance had a lot of great interactivity with each other. and they had some great banter back and forth in the writing.
I also love the clear 1984 reference they added into this film too. It's not necessarily funny, but such a great Easter egg. One of the new foundational elements in this film is this new belief system that's a shape of a tree that builds Riley's sense of self and who she believes and knows that she is.
They didn't mention by name, but what they were talking about were affirmations, and I love that. When they were first describing Riley, they were talking about how she felt about herself, how she felt, I'm a good person, I'm a good friend, wonderful positive things. And I love that, of course, as the film goes on and as she's dealing with anxiety and anxiety kind of takes over, it changes to I'm not good enough, I need to do better. Of course, those are negative self-talk that just happens, especially when you put pressure on yourself. And of course, when you have the negative self-talk, everyone suggests and advises to focus on positive affirmations. So going back to the I am good enough, I am successful, I'm a winner, I'm a good friend, things like that. And I know that's so important, especially with keeping your self-worth positive. And I love that they allow, hey, not everything is going to be perfect. And I love that they just let things be from time to time, but also once those emotions surpass out, it comes back to being positive, and it comes back to the positive affirmations, which again is the belief system and the belief tree, but in realisticness, that is an affirmation. And it made me so happy knowing that that is such a pivotal point in this film.
And once again, I'll bring up the thought that it was so nice that nothing played out the way I expected it to go. One of the actions Joyce takes early in the film is throwing all of the cringy bad memories Riley has to the back of the mind, never to be seen again. I thought it was placed there to get set up and activating a catalyst backfiring on Joy, but that's not what happens. And instead, I love the direction they took and the way it helped Joy's character evolve and mature even more. In fact, I loved how not only all the characters evolved and changed, but how they all organically interacted with each other and worked together, especially at the end.
There's a small little scene where Joy and Anxiety are able to work together, and Joy has a spot for Anxiety to go, in a physical spot where she has a nice comfy chair, she has some tea, she has some candles. I'm like, I love this so much because literally it's a page book of how to calm yourself down if you're anxious. Be able to just breathe, relax, and calm. And that little moment meant so much to me. I loved it because I relate to, and I do it a lot of the time. When it comes to the outcome of the film, it is open-ended. And I know they did it on purpose because I know that the message of the film is to don't put all the pressure on yourself for one thing to happen. And if it doesn't happen, the world's not going to end. There are better opportunities coming. I know that is a very important thing to learn. And I know it's something that I hear a lot of people talk about every day. And I think it's a very important message to share because a lot of times there are goals and there's dreams that you desire that you want to put all your focus on. But then of course, if it doesn't happen, you break down. And it's important to kind of be like, hey, that's okay. If this isn't gonna happen, I have something else, and there's always a next time. And so I really loved the message. I loved how, again, realistic. This movie was so realistic on every layer of what they did. It's such a good movie. It's such a good film, especially for a sequel, because I know that there's a stigma, and I've talked about it so many times when I did all the old reviews on this channel, how a lot of times sequels do not do as well as the first film and they fall flat. Instead, the subject alone makes this amazing. And I know that I've seen other people talk about it. I'm obviously one of these people. I want them to do more with this. Like, I'm very excited to see a continuation, and I'm so excited to see what they can do in terms of what's Riley gonna deal with next growing up and potentially going away to college and dealing with the transition of finishing your childhood to being able to be comfortable and excited for adulthood. I think that would be like the great send-off at the end of it. But there's so much more material that they can work with, especially because this film only took place over a 3-day period. And it's a 90-minute movie, but it's not a long journey. It only takes place over a weekend. So at this point, Pixar, Disney, give me a call, give me a text, contact me, because I would love to be able to help with that paunchy and anger mini episode short series. It'd be amazing to see what they could come up with. And even having Lance and Discuss as their own little fairy tale, you could do so much. And it would be creative and it'd be original and it wouldn't be the same 5 movies you're making over and over and over again. We needed creativity. This was Pixar being amazing, creative, wonderful, one of the best Disney films in years. And we need more of this, please. Let me know what y'all all thought about this. If you also related to it, if there are certain mental health struggles that you've dealt with, or just everyday life and growing up with emotions and learning how to adjust to the complexity of the brain. And if you also felt attacked like I did, because I felt attacked, but in the best way possible, because it's great representation and I love seeing this genuine mental health struggle representation. Give me more flawed characters that are positive. I'll be excited to see what they do in the future with this series, like I said. But until then, as always, I hope you guys have a magical day and I will see you real soon.